There is a room in your heart that you have sealed shut. It's the room where you keep the ghosts, the ghost of the person you lost, the ghost of the life you had with them, the ghost of the person you were before they were gone. You walk past the door to that room every day. You can feel the cold seeping out from under it. You can hear the silence on the other side, and you do everything in your power to ignore it. You stay busy. You stay distracted. You fill your life with noise. But at night when the world is quiet, you can feel the door begin to tremble. And you know, with a certainty that terrifies you, that one day you will have to go inside. In the next few minutes, the great psychologist of the soul, Carl Jung, is going to give you a key to that door, not to lock it tighter, but to open it. He will give you the courage to walk into that room, not as a victim, but as an explorer. He will show you that grief is not a problem to be solved, but a landscape to be navigated, a sacred and terrifying and ultimately transformative landscape. And you'll soon know that the goal is not to get over your loss. The goal is to be changed by it, to allow it to break you open, so that a new and stronger and more compassionate version of yourself can be born. Part 1. The unspoken truth about grief. Let's start by telling the truth. The whole and brutal and liberating truth. Our culture is terrified of grief. We treat it like a disease, a temporary madness that must be cured as quickly as possible. We have a script for it. A 5-stage, neatly packaged, and utterly false script. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. As if grief were a checklist, as if the soul could be tamed by a flowchart. We are given a few days off work, a few weeks of sympathy, and then we are expected to be back to normal, to move on, to get over it. But you know in your bones that this is a lie. You know that grief is not a linear process. It is a wild and chaotic and unpredictable storm. It comes in waves. One moment, you are fine, you are laughing, you are almost yourself again. And the next, a song on the radio, a scent in the air, a forgotten photograph, and you are on your knees, gasping for air, drowning in a sea of sorrow. You know that there is no getting over it. The person you lost is not a cold you get over. They are a part of you, and they are gone. And the hole they have left in your life, in your heart, in the very fabric of reality, is not a temporary wound. It is a permanent amputation. And here is the most unspoken truth of all. Grief is not just sadness. It is a full-blown identity crisis. The person you were died with the person you lost. The roles you played, the wife, the son, the best friend, they have been stripped away. The future you had planned, the story you were living, it has been erased. You are standing in the rubble of your own life with no map, no compass, and no idea who you are anymore. And that is the most terrifying part of all. Not the sadness, but the emptiness. Not the pain, but the confusion. Not the past that is gone, but the future that is a blank and terrifying and unwritten page. Jung understood this. He knew that grief was not a psychological problem to be solved. He saw it as a sacred and necessary initiation, a descent into the underworld of the soul. He knew that our modern, sanitized and deeply neurotic approach to grief was not just unhelpful, it was harmful. It was forcing people to repress, to deny, to pathologize a process that is as natural and as necessary as birth. It was forcing them to build a wall around their pain, a wall that not only locked the grief in, but that also locked the joy, the love, and the life out. And he knew that the only way out of the underworld is not to run from it, but to walk through it, to face the darkness, to feel the fire, and to allow yourself to be burned down to the ground so that something new and true and beautiful can rise from the ashes. Part 2. The ego's war against sorrow. When the storm of grief hits, your ego, the conscious, controlling part of your mind, goes into a state of absolute panic. The ego is a creature of order, of logic, of predictability. It needs to have a plan. It needs to be in control. And grief is the ultimate loss of control. It is chaos. It is mystery. It is a force of nature that cannot be reasoned with, or managed, or contained. And so, the ego declares war. A war against your own sorrow. And it has 3 primary and ultimately futile weapons. Its first weapon is denial. The ego simply refuses to accept the reality of the loss. It creates a bubble of magical thinking. This can't be happening. It's all a bad dream. They're going to walk through that door any minute now. This is not just a psychological defense mechanism. It is a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of control. If I don't believe it, it's not real. The ego will cling to this denial with a ferocious intensity, because to let it go would be to let in the flood, to let in the overwhelming and terrifying and ego-shattering reality of the loss. Its second weapon is distraction. When denial begins to fail, when the cracks in the bubble begin to appear, the ego switches to a strategy of frantic and relentless activity. It fills every waking moment with noise, with work, with social events, with anything and everything that will keep you from having to feel. You become a human doing instead of a human being. You work 12-hour days. You go out every night. You binge watch entire seasons of television in a single weekend. You are running from the silence, running from the emptiness, running from the room in your heart where the ghost is waiting, but you cannot outrun your own soul. And the more you run, the more exhausted you become, and the more the silence and the sorrow and the truth begin to catch up with you. And its third and most insidious weapon is judgment. When you can no longer deny the pain, and you can no longer run from it, the ego turns on you. It begins to judge your grief. You should be over this by now. You're being too emotional. You're weak. You're wallowing in self-pity. It compares your grief to others. So-and-so lost their spouse, and they're doing fine. It tries to shame you back into a state of numb and manageable functionality. This is the ego at its most cruel. It takes the most vulnerable and painful and human experience of your life, and it turns it into a source of shame. It makes you feel like you are failing at grief, as if there were a right way to have your heart broken. This war against sorrow is a war you can never win. And it is a war that is costing you your life. Every ounce of energy you spend fighting your grief is an ounce of energy you are not spending on living. Every wall you build around your heart is a wall that is keeping love out. Every judgment you hurl at yourself is a poison that is slowly and surely killing your soul. The only way to win this war is to surrender, to lay down your arms, to stop fighting and to start feeling, to have the courage to let your heart break completely and utterly and without reservation. Because as Jung knew, it is only when the heart breaks open that the light can get in. Part 3. The sacred path of descent. Surrender is not a passive act. It is not giving up. It is the most courageous and active and revolutionary thing you can do. It is the conscious and deliberate choice to turn and face your pain, to walk into the storm, to begin the sacred and terrifying journey of descent into the underworld of your own soul. This is not a journey with a map. It is a journey that you must make on your hands and knees in the dark. But there are guides. There are practices. There are ways to navigate this treacherous and holy landscape. The first practice is to create a sanctuary for your sorrow. Your grief needs a time and a place to be heard. It cannot be allowed to run your life, but it cannot be locked in the basement either. You must give it a room. This might be a specific time each day, 20 minutes in the morning, an hour at night, where you deliberately and consciously allow yourself to feel. You light a candle. You play a piece of music. You look at a photograph, and you let the waves come. You let yourself cry or rage, or simply sit in the numb and silent emptiness. You are not wallowing. You are honoring. You are creating a sacred container for your pain. And by doing so, you are telling your soul, I am listening. I am not afraid. I am here. The second practice is to speak the unspeakable. Grief is a story that needs to be told. Over and over and over again, you must find a witness. A person who is willing to sit with you in the darkness without trying to fix you or save you or cheer you up. A person who can listen to your story, to the raw and messy and contradictory details of your loss, without judgment, without advice, and without fear. This might be a therapist, a support group, or a trusted friend. The act of speaking your pain, of giving it voice, is a powerful act of alchemy. It begins to transform the raw and chaotic and overwhelming energy of grief into something that can be held, something that can be integrated, something that can eventually become a source of wisdom and compassion and strength. And the third practice is to listen to the language of the soul. When the ego is shattered by loss, the soul begins to speak, and it does not speak in the language of logic, but in the language of symbols, of dreams, of synchronicities. You may find yourself dreaming of the person you lost, not as they were, but as a guide, a presence, a symbol. You may find yourself drawn to certain images or animals or places that seem to hold a mysterious and personal meaning. You may experience moments of profound and inexplicable coincidence that feel like a message from another world. This is not madness. This is the language of the soul, and you must learn to listen to it, to honor it, to engage with it. Keep a journal. Write down your dreams. Pay attention to the symbols that are appearing in your life. You are in a dialogue with the deepest and wisest part of yourself, and it is trying to guide you through the darkness and back to the light. This is the sacred path of descent. It is not a path of healing, in the sense of returning to who you were. That person is gone. It is a path of transformation, a path of becoming someone new. Someone who has been to the underworld and has returned. Someone who has looked into the face of death and has chosen to live. Someone who has had their heart broken and has discovered that a broken heart is an open heart. And an open heart is the beginning of everything. Part 4. The rebirth of the soul. There will come a day, and you will not know it when it happens, when the waves of grief begin to soften. The troughs will not be as deep. The peaks will not be as sharp. You will find yourself laughing, and it will not feel like a betrayal. You will find yourself making plans for the future, and it will not feel like a fantasy. You will find yourself feeling alive, not the same kind of alive as before. A different kind, a quieter and deeper and more precious kind of alive. This is not the end of your grief. Your grief will be with you forever. It has become a part of you, but it is no longer the center of you. It has become a source of your strength, not your weakness. A source of your compassion, not your bitterness. A source of your wisdom, not your despair. This is the rebirth of the soul. What is reborn is not the old you. It is a new you. A you that has been forged in the fire of loss. A you that knows what matters and what does not. A you that is no longer afraid of the dark because you have been there and you have survived. A you that is more compassionate, more humble, more connected to the fragile and beautiful and sacred mystery of life. You have, as Jung would say, individuated. You have become more yourself, not in spite of your loss, but because of it. This rebirth does not happen on a schedule. It cannot be forced. It cannot be rushed. It happens in its own mysterious and sacred time. And it happens when you have the courage to let go of the person you were, to let go of the life you had, to let go of the future you planned, and to surrender completely and utterly to the person you are becoming, the person who is being born right now in the womb of your own broken and beautiful heart. And how do you help someone who is on this journey? You do not try to fix them. You do not try to heal them. You do not try to rush them. You simply and profoundly bear witness. You sit with them in the silence. You listen to their story for the 100th time. You hold their hand in the dark. You offer them the one thing that they need more than anything else, the quiet and steady and unwavering presence of a loving heart. You become a sanctuary for their sorrow. And in doing so, you participate in the most sacred act a human being can perform, the act of walking each other home. So, if you are in that room right now, the room with the ghosts, know this: you are not alone. You are on a sacred path, a path that has been walked by countless souls before you, a path that is as old as love itself. And it is a path that leads not to an end, but to a beginning. The beginning of a new life, a life that is richer and deeper and more meaningful than you can possibly imagine. A life that is worthy of the love you have lost. And a life that is finally and truly and completely your own. Let's be brutally honest about our cultural malpractice when it comes to grief. We have turned mourning into a private, shameful, and deeply lonely affair. We are taught that strong people don't cry, that busy people don't have time for sorrow, that evolved people let go and move on. We are offered platitudes instead of presents. They're in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. Time heals all wounds. These are not words of comfort. They are words of dismissal. They are a way of saying, your pain is making me uncomfortable. Please stop. And so, we learn to perform our grief in a way that is acceptable to others. We cry in the shower. We scream in the car. We put on a brave face at work. We become actors in the theatre of our own sorrow, playing the part of the good griever. But this performance is killing us. It is forcing us to deny the most authentic and human and necessary experience of our lives. And it is creating a profound and dangerous split between our inner world and our outer world. A split that can lead to depression, to anxiety, to addiction, and to a deep and abiding sense of alienation from our own soul. And the 5 stages of grief, they were never meant to be a linear roadmap. They were observations of the dying, not of the bereaved, and yet we have clung to them as a life raft in the storm of our own sorrow. We try to force our wild and chaotic and unpredictable grief into these neat and tidy boxes. Am I in the anger stage yet? When will I get to acceptance? We use them to judge ourselves and to judge others. We have taken a beautiful and compassionate set of observations, and we have turned them into a weapon, a stick to beat ourselves with when our grief does not conform to the schedule. The truth is, grief is not a ladder. It is a labyrinth, a wild and tangled and deeply personal labyrinth. And the only way through it is to let go of the map and to trust the wisdom of your own broken heart. The ego's war against sorrow is a masterpiece of self-deception. Denial is not just a refusal to believe, it is a full-time job. It requires a constant and exhausting effort to maintain the illusion. You avoid places that remind you of them. You change the subject when their name comes up. You create a whole new reality, a reality in which they are just on a long trip and they will be home soon. It is a fragile and beautiful and ultimately doomed fantasy. And the energy it takes to maintain it is the energy you need to heal. Distraction is the ego's favorite drug, and in our modern world there is no shortage of supply. The endless scroll of social media, the 24-hour news cycle, the infinite buffet of streaming services. We can, if we choose, spend every waking moment of our lives in a state of numb and passive and deeply unsatisfying consumption. We are not just avoiding our grief, we are avoiding our lives. We are trading the terrifying and beautiful and sacred reality of our own existence for a cheap and fleeting and utterly meaningless digital imitation. And we are wondering why we feel so empty. And the judgment is the voice of the collective, internalized. It is the voice of a culture that is terrified of its own vulnerability. It is the voice of your parents, of your teachers, of your friends who, in their own well-meaning and deeply misguided way, taught you that your feelings were not to be trusted, that your sorrow was a sign of weakness, that your heart was a problem to be solved. And so, you have become your own harshest critic. You have turned the enemy without into the enemy within, and you are engaged in a brutal and unwinnable civil war on the battlefield of your own soul.